Every doctor on TV says that we all need to boost our immune systems, and STEM Enhance does that in a unique way. By increasing blood levels of your adult stem cells, the backbone of your immune system, by over 30% in just 1 hour. Click on the link in the description box below for details.
We watched this yesterday, RFK Jr. versus every Democrat in the room on Capitol Hill. Democrats hate Kennedy because, unlike the previous regime running our national health institutions, he is not going to continue the culture of rubber stamping unnecessary vaccines and essentially anything that pharmaceutical companies want, like Pfizer, for example. Take a look.
All over the United States of America who deserve so much better than your leadership.
No, the question is everyone who wants it. That was your promise.
I know, I didn't. I never.
And you were sitting as Secretary of Health and Human Services? How can you be that ignorant?
You're interrupting me, and sir, you're a charlatan. That's what you are.
I'm telling you, the American Heart Association has been co-opted by the food
Everybody but you, Senator. Everybody is corrupt but you. Is that what we're looking at? I don't think so. And I think the issue now...
I don't even know what you're talking about.
It wasn't that long ago. I think a lot of people have blacked it out or at least deliberately tried to forget. But it started with 15 days to flatten the curve in the spring of 2020. Then it was masks in public. Then it was 2 masks, and people were suddenly wearing face shields. Then they told us to socially distance, stay 6 feet apart. Stores put arrows up and down the aisles. Toilet paper was sold out everywhere. Schools were then shut down for years. Sports were canceled. Half the country thought this was all normal, like lemmings. All the while, we continued to listen to people like Dr. Fauci. Gyms and churches and playgrounds were closed. Vape shops, liquor stores, and strip clubs stayed open. Think about that. Millions were told they couldn't go to funerals, but when George Floyd died, he had multiple public funerals across multiple states. Graduations were canceled, anniversaries, weddings, vacations, prom, all canceled, movie theaters closed. At restaurants, you had to wear a mask while you walked to your table, but you could take it off as soon as you sat down at that table. They told us this was all normal because it was never about health. It was always about control. And health leaders today, under the new administration, are trying to prevent all of that insanity from ever happening again. And joining us now for more is FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary. Dr. Makary, it's great to have you on. Thank you.
Good to be with you, Rob.
Why do you think Democrats are so in love with this religion of vaccines, particularly the COVID vaccine, which did not work? Why do you think that is?
You know, I don't know. I do think there's a long history of paternalism that we see in our medical establishment. And when the CDC and our health agencies became highly political in the Biden administration, you saw that paternalism come through. Novak Djokovic, who's playing in the U.S. Open right now, was not allowed to come to the United States under the Biden administration public health officials' rules because he had natural immunity and did not obey and get the vaccine. He had circulating antibodies that neutralized the virus, but they were not antibodies that the government approved. And when you look at that hearing that you just played and that incredible litany of the insanity that we just lived through over the last 4 years, you see how broken this cult religion is. Rather than talk about the healthcare system being broken and how we improve the health of the population of our nation's children,
right?
Instead, they're criticizing him for not blindly commanding 7-year-olds to get the 8th COVID booster shot this year. I mean, think about this myopic approach. By the way, we're the only country that's pushing young kids to get their 7th COVID shot. You go to France, you've got to be 80 years old and high risk. You go to UK, you've got to be 75 years and high risk. We have got to move on to the actual issues in the health of our population. And so I had hoped that hearing would have been constructive and productive to talk about our chronic disease epidemic. But no, the Democrats chose to make it a political theater about the 8th COVID shot in a young, healthy child in America today.
Which they always seem to do. My kids had checkups before the start of the school year, and their pediatrician asked about the COVID vaccine. We have not vaccinated our children, but I couldn't believe it. Here we are 5 years later, and they're still so eager to inject our children with this vaccine that's still technically experimental. You know that. J.D. Vance tweeting this yesterday. When I see all these senators trying to lecture Bobby Kennedy, all I can think is you all support off-label, untested, irreversible hormonal therapies for children, mutilating our kids and enriching big pharma. You're all full of a four-letter word I can't say on TV, and everyone knows it. What's your response to that, Dr. Makary?
Well, I think he's calling them out appropriately, but look, we're focused on our work. It's an exciting time in our health agencies under the leadership of the secretary. You know, we're Republican, Democrat, independent moms showed up in high numbers to vote for President Trump over this issue of improving the health of our nation's children. So we're busy. We've got Jay Bhattacharya at the NIH now studying root causes of chronic diseases. We've got CMS talking about not just throwing good money after bad into our broken Medicare and Medicaid system, but paying for health care in a smart way. And at the FDA, we're bringing back gold standard science and common sense to get healthier food for children and more cures and meaningful treatments for Americans.
Which means it might be painful in the short term, but I want to ask you about the chronic disease. So there's a lot of evidence. The FDA put out some reporting that people who got vaccinated, particularly Pfizer and Moderna, are at risk of sudden death for anywhere between 5 and 15 years after vaccination. I'm wondering how you respond to that, and then how concerned you are with vaccine injury and long COVID, which could be the same thing in things like myocarditis, pericarditis, autoimmune diseases, cancer. How big a problem is this now, and how big a problem is this going to be for people who got vaccinated in particular?
Well, we're starting to unravel this, Rob, because we had manipulated and undisclosed data under the Biden administration. We found out they were sitting on data just because it threatened the vaccinate for all message for the COVID vaccine. We found out that they did not properly investigate cases of child vaccine-related deaths in children. Okay, so when you have a COVID vaccine-associated death in a child, you have got to investigate that with scientific objectivity. We're doing our own investigation, and we're finding out, one, why are we learning about this for the first time now and not in the prior administration? And we're learning that they were not honest with the data. Those CDC leaders that resigned en masse last week, some of those same leaders were leaders that were not giving us the data we asked for when we first got to the FDA a few months ago. So we have not gotten the data that the public deserves, and we're going to get it for people.
And it's just, I hope you do, and I'm so glad that you are all doing this now. It's just, it's so dirty to me, and I know so many people that feel the same way. You've got big pharma companies like Pfizer, who at one point during the pandemic were minting new billionaires on an almost weekly basis. All right, all this money, and there's no accountability. They're immune from class action. They're immune from all this, and people have died as a result of the vaccines, and that is just a fact. It's an uncomfortable fact that the rest of the media doesn't seem to want to discuss, but it is a fact. Just quickly yesterday, about 20 seconds, they encouraged residents of California to start masking again because of a new COVID variant. This is yesterday in the state of California, Dr. Makary. What do you make of that? Does that make any sense to you?
Look, this is the medical dogma that we heard over the last 4 years, and it's medical dogma that gives people a false sense of security. If you wear a cloth mask and go visit your grandmother when you're infected, that mask is doing nothing to reduce the risk of infection. So we're getting back to gold standard science, and we are calling out medical dogma when we see it.